Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Online Warriors podcast, the final episode of the month of March. The Munch of March is what I just said.
I kind of like that.
The Munch of March, March Munchness is currently underway. Did not fill out a bracket this year. That's just
Really?
I should introduce Techtic. Techtic's here, looking in the shadows. That's Nerdbomber. I'm Illeagle 86. This is the first year in probably a solid 5 years. Like, usually I fill out a bracket as a joke. That's like, let me set the stage appropriately. I'm not a bracket guru. I don't know anything about college basketball, but it's just kind of like a thing you do at this time of year, right? Like, it's fun to just like see if, Monroe State or like some college that sounds made up will beat Kansas, right? That's just like kind of the whole conceit. But this year I didn't do it. Do you guys have brackets?
Nope.
I did make brackets, both men's and women's this year. And I think my men's bracket, I don't remember what the stat was, but it's already not good. We're recording this on Sunday for those of you who, I guess, need to know that for context of where we are in March Madness. But yeah, my picks,
That's a good point.
It's not great. It's not looking good.
Well, yeah, I think it's like, there obviously are many, many thousands of brackets that are made every year. And speaking to the men's tournament specifically, I think I already saw that going into the round of 32, there's only 121 perfect brackets remaining. There's never been a perfect bracket ever, I believe, at least not like documented on one of the websites that does them. So it's a big deal. And like, I'm not even really a basketball fan, let alone a college basketball fan, but I think March Madness is it's a triumph in sporting and sports organization that like they just kind of like claim this time of year every year, and it's as big a deal as it is. Because like I don't even know that like the big national sports leagues have that. Like the playoffs do not have this kind of energy in any national sports league that I know of. It's just a cool, like very compressed. How long does it last? Like 2 weeks. Like it's just it's a cool event. March Munchness. March, as they say, comes in like a lion and out like a lamb. In our neck of the woods, I wouldn't say that it's feeling particularly lambish right now, but that may change in a week's time. Who's to say? Either way, hope you're staying warm if you need to be warm, or staying cool if you need to stay cool. And hope you're being safe. We have a great episode for y'all this week. We're going to be talking about technology. We haven't done a technology topic in a while, I feel like. We haven't done something that's not gaming news, movie news, or television news in quite a while. So I specifically wanted to shout out some fairly sizable development in the technology world. So we'll get into that. I'm going to remain as vague as possible for now. But we also need to talk about a rom-com, because we talk about rom-coms a lot on this show. In particular, like older ones that we've watched or ones that we're a fan of. There's a new one coming that it looks like may be pretty good. So we'll get into that. And then we're going to take a trip in a time machine back to, well, I wanted to say a time when Adam Sandler was still relevant. I feel like he's still relevant. That's probably being too mean to Adam
He just
Sandler,
very much picks and chooses exactly what he wants to do. And I respect that.
Yeah, we should talk about this one first. In fact, we'll dive right in. We're going to take a time machine back to 1996. So I was 4 years old. So like, let me just say, I have never seen Happy Gilmore. I feel like we do this a lot on this show where we pick we talked about Freaky Friday last week. Never seen Freaky Friday. I've never seen Happy Gilmore.
I've actually never seen it either. But I'm not the
I think
world's
a lot of
biggest Adam
seen
Sandler
it
fan.
probably 7,000 times.
So we know who picked
It's one
this
of those
topic.
movies. Well, it's one of those movies, right? Like it's this, and like I think Billy Madison, and like what other movies around this time? Big Daddy. Like this was during the Sandler run of the late 90s, where like he could make a movie and it would work pretty much no matter what. And like testament to him. Like I shouldn't take credit away from him so glibly, even for making it now, making a sequel now, which like I tend to have things to say about sequels being made like 30 years later. I don't think it's typically a winning formula, but like you said, Techtic, I think you really did hit the nail on the head. Like Adam Sandler's at a stage in his career where he's kind of done a little bit of everything, right? Like he had his big comedy run, like I said, in the late 90s. I would say in the mid to late aughts, he started to get serious, and like he made movies like Click and Funny People, where like they were still ostensibly comedies, but they had some dramatic undertones. He made movies like Spanglish, and like he eventually pivoted all the way into his, I guess, higher drama, like Uncut Gems phase, which was like, if you've never seen Uncut Gems, by the way, it's just the anxiety attack in the form of a movie. But now he's at a stage in his career where like he recently did Hubie Halloween. He made that movie about basketball, and he's like a very, very publicly a big basketball person. I believe that movie is called Hustle, but I can't remember. I haven't seen it. But now he's like come full circle, and he's just, I think he probably is running, like, I'm sure Netflix offered him a bunch of money, but like he's also probably running back Happy Gilmore because he wants to. Right?
Well, I thought too,
isn't
he under contract with Netflix where I could be speaking on my butt, but I'm pretty sure he had like an exclusivity deal where all of his stuff was going to come out on Netflix, which is why I think Uncut Gems, wasn't that a Netflix movie first? Like it had like a limited theatrical release, but I thought it was a Netflix movie.
I know Hubie Halloween was. I don't remember if Uncut Gems was or not. But yeah, I mean, his content is all hitting Netflix. He did a fairly serious movie in the past few years where he was on a spaceship too. I don't think it really did any numbers or anything, but that was another thing he did recently that it was definitely on Netflix. So Happy Gilmore's back. Now, Techtic, you just stated that you have seen the original, I think you said 7,000 times, give or take. You know, it's a fairly simple conceit for a movie, right? He is a hockey player who is a failed hockey player who turns into a golf
prodigy.
He plays. Yeah, he hits the ball really hard. He like does that running shot that apparently works really well. He, I believe, hits the ball with a hockey stick, if I recall correctly. So this trailer, which came out earlier this week, finds Happy Gilmore seemingly having been retired for quite a while, seemingly accomplishing a lot. Like there's this scene in the trailer where he's like, his bust is amongst like Jack Nicklaus and other like really famous golfers.
So the plot, by the way,
going on here.
The plot, by the way, in the first one is, if I'm remembering correctly, is his grandma's house is getting foreclosed on, and he participates in the golf tournament to earn the winnings to save her house. And the person who is his biggest nemesis is Shooter McGavin. And so that's why he's the bad guy in the first one. And we did see in the trailer he is returning. So there's going to be some plot point there. However, his grandma assumedly is, gone. I'm not sure what the plot vice is here to get him to, so to speak, get back on the saddle.
Yeah, I mean, we see Travis Kelce, Bad Bunny, Eminem, Ben Stiller seemingly reprising a role, seems to recognize Happy Gilmore. Happy Gilmore has seen it all. He apparently has gone super, super pro, was super successful, was retired, and like you said, some unknown plot device is going to force him back into the limelight. We also see Rory McIlroy, Bryson DeChambeau, like actual pro golfers in the trailer. This movie is being produced in part by Pro Shop Studios, which I guess is like a golf movie studio, which I don't really know what else they're up to besides this. Yeah, that's why, again, Caddyshack is a very famous golf movie, but like in recent times, I can't really think of a funny or important golf movie. Maybe they're trying to change that, but
the most important takeaway from this trailer and why I wanted to speak to it is Julie Bowen is aging like a fine wine. Holy smokes.
You love her. You do.
You're a fan.
Well, do you know what she looked like? She was like the attractive-ish person back in the original, but like she wasn't knock your socks off. Today,
are your socks?
My socks. I'm not wearing anything on my feet. They are gone. They are outside.
Clean off. Yeah, I mean, are you a Modern Family guy? Because like that was her big thing in the past however long.
He sees himself as Phil Dunphy. He thinks he could have had a shot.
I think I got my shot because I see you
can get
as
behind this.
As a Bowen.
Oh, she's your Claire Dunphy.
She's my Claire.
I don't know how to feel about that, but
I think you should feel good. I mean, Julie Bowen, I have to agree with Techtic. She's got it going on. She's looking great.
Look her up. Look what she looked like in the original. She really, like I said, she's aging like a fine wine.
I wonder we need to talk about the whole like a sequel 30 years later thing because I think that Adams. Well, I don't even think it's that. I think that the Adam Sandler movies of the 90s in particular, like, I was growing up at a time where like, and yeah, like The Waterboy, like some of these came out in the early aughts too. Like there was a phase of time where like I was a young kid and I think the people who drove viewership of these movies were like probably teenage boys or like college guys, like mostly men, mostly younger dudes. Like I don't want to say laughing at fart jokes because again that's diminishing what this is, but like I think we can all agree I think we can all agree that like his sense of humor and his comedic sensibility around that time was pretty juvenile,
and it still works because fun fact, teenage boys still exist.
And teenage boys still exist.
Grandma's screaming. Oh no, Grandma's Boy is a cult classic that I know people are still watching to this day. That is part of that same cast and crew of slapstick comedy.
I mean, I hear you. I think I agree. I don't know that this brand of comedy has aged super well. I would think that this movie, for various reasons, will try to pivot away from that brand of comedy, and I don't know that that's going to work. Like that's my concern about it. And again, this is an uninformed opinion, relatively, from someone who didn't even see the first movie. But I wonder if I think for it to be successful, it would need to draw the same audience, and like in particular, the same audience. Again, with this gap of time, you want to draw teenage boys. There are teenage boys who
Yeah, but it's going to be the teenage boys that watch this are now going to watch it with their teenage boys.
See, I don't know if that's true.
I'm going to watch this. Me and my dog, I'm going to watch this.
Teenage boys now,
Incredible.
they know Adam Sandler as the Uncut Gems guy. Like this phase of his career predates them. And I feel like the humor, if it's going to be the same kind of humor, is going to be geared at them. So it's a very interesting, I don't know that this movie can coast on nostalgia, because I think a lot of similar attempts have been made.
Can I make it's going to come off as aggressive, and I really don't mean it to be, but I think both of you are speaking from a place of ignorance and think that the original was just complete and total slapstick, and it wasn't. It was a full comprehensive movies that had its juvenile moments, but it had its touching moments. Like I said, the whole plot vice was not, I'm just going to do this because it's fun. It was to save his grandmother's house. Like, there were emotions in it. It had the full spectrum. There was love. There was a little bit of comedy. There was even nail biting parts where you're like, is he gonna get this shot? He's gonna have to do some crazy ricochet shenanigans for it to work, and it does. And it's a celebration. This movie, it truly was a lot more than just fart jokes. And I feel like that's a juvenile take.
It's an uninformed take, and I'll certainly cop to that. I don't think that's an overly aggressive statement. With that said, I stand by my opinion. And it's not so much that I question the ability of this movie to garner an audience. I've certainly seen worse reboots and remakes come about than this one in terms of ideas. And again, I think Adam Sandler's at a point in his career where he can do whatever the heck he wants. And if this is what he wants to do, he should go for it.
So this franchise,
it'll probably do fine.
Since Nerdbomber did watch Hubie Halloween, this franchise is, and when I say franchise, I'm really taking inspiration from the first one, is more mature than Hubie Halloween. Would you watch this? That said.
Are you asking me?
Nerdbomber.
No, I mean, it's going to be on Netflix, so I guess it's not that big of a risk, because if it sucks, I can just nope out of it.
Yeah, it can be turned off, or you can just walk away from it. It being on Netflix certainly helps. Like, I think this is a movie where, like, yeah, if my wife was a big Happy Gilmore fan, like, yeah, I'd buy in, I'd sit down and watch it. That said, she's not, so like, I just don't know.
So one of two things are getting turned off if you watch it. Am I right?
That was horrible.
Right? It's either the show or your
you're
wife.
talking to me over me. Or my wife.
Yeah.
There's no need to discuss it, because this is not going to be screened in our household. I can virtually guarantee. And again, that's not like, I'm trying not to poo-poo this. I've seen a lot worse ideas. This probably didn't cost that much money to make. I would hope it'll be a crisp 90 minutes, and I'm always up for that. If it's a 2-hour movie, some terrible mistakes have been made. I will say that. And in fact, I should Google that. The runtime of Happy Gilmore is not currently known. The first movie was 90 minutes long exactly. So
tight 90, as you call it.
I think the second one should also be a tight 90. Yeah, we'll see. I don't know. This one, it comes out July 25th. So summer movie season, but a stay-at-home summer movie, which is, again, kind of an interesting, potentially niche market. Again, it could very well do numbers. I just would be surprised. And also, I imagine it's not getting a theatrical release, so we'll have to wait and see. Let's pivot into tech. Let's pivot away from film for a moment and pivot into technology. There are other electric car companies besides Tesla. I feel like I should start this topic by saying that.
I would say there's actually a lot of other electric car companies. Like, I think most major car brands now do have some sort of like plug-in hybrid, if not full-on electric vehicle. Like, even, and I don't mean to say even Chevy to like denigrate the Chevy name, but like even Chevy now has, I think it's an Equinox, a fully electric Equinox, which is fairly inexpensive. So there's a lot of electric car brands on the market.
Yeah, get wrecked, Chevy. I would say in terms of pure electric car brands, there are fewer that are just purely in electric cars. But there is a Chinese manufacturer, BYD, that has recently unveiled a new fast charging tech that can add 400 kilometers or 249 miles to us imperial unit buffoons. 250 about miles of range from a 5-minute charge. So
that's wild. Because how long? I know you have an electric car, hybrid at least, but like how long does it take to get a full charge?
Well, so I have a plug-in hybrid. I don't have an electric charging setup at my house. It's just you can plug into a standard 120 volt outlet, and to charge a battery, and it's just 200. It's just a 200. or 120 volt outlet, but like to charge the battery fully, which the full charge gets you, I think, 33 miles of pure electric range, it takes like 12 hours.
You only get 33 miles?
Correct. On the pure electric on the plug-in hybrid.
Does it?
Shout out to the Hyundai Tucson plug-in hybrid.
I guess I've never really questioned your car that much, but now is it one of those then where when you like start running your car, then it automatically is generating more, so you're not
kind of
using gas all the time?
You're not using gas all the time. There's regenerative braking. The engine will charge the battery under certain circumstances as well. So like, yeah, it's very climate dependent. It depends on how hard you're using the AC and stuff. But like it does very well. It does better than certainly a gas vehicle would do on gas, and it does better than a hybrid vehicle would do on gas.
So can I say something that will likely depress all of you? There are a number, and this isn't even like car companies. There are a number of cars within car companies that exist here in the States that simply are not allowed to be sold here. And I guarantee you this will fall under that umbrella.
Well, yeah. So BYD, I've never seen a BYD vehicle here in the States. I can't imagine I ever will. Nevertheless, it is seen as being in direct competition with Tesla in terms of the electric vehicle charging technology. So Tesla, I think fairly recently unveiled their V4 superchargers. This charges at double the speed of that, charges at peak speeds of 1,000 kilowatts. They're planning to put, I believe they said 4,000 of these across China. Now, I have read other articles that state that that's going to be very difficult to do. The cables required are obviously very specific. They need to be liquid cooled.
Oh, geez.
There's a lot of specific things that need to happen for this to actually work. It basically, I mean, electricity is electricity. At a certain point, you basically just need to have a huge voltage differential to get this charge to happen this quickly. But I still, I want to talk about it because even the mere possibility of it, rolling out wide in the mainstream across all electric vehicle manufacturers is a big deal, right? Because I think that a lot of people right now, and I was one of these people in thinking about whether I should go pure electric for my car or, stick with a hybrid or a plug-in hybrid.
It's all contingent.
A lot of it has to do, it's all contingent on infrastructure, and it's contingent on, if I'm on a road trip somewhere, do I want to have to sit somewhere for an hour while my car charges? No, I want to, go through the drive-through, get some, stop at the electric vehicle charger for 5 minutes and then get back on the road. So like, I would imagine that this aspect of it, the charging speed, is what turns a lot of people off, right? So let alone the fact that Tesla has a monopoly on chargers right now in this country, and Tesla is currently undergoing maybe the largest PR crisis of any company that's ever taken place.
While simultaneously lobbying the government.
Right. There's a lot going on there. Tesla. I think this technology being rolled out at large could be a very big deal in terms of people's willingness to actually go full electric. I think there's a lot of other good things that are happening in terms of, I think Ford right now, they will do an install of a level 2 electric charger in your house for free if you get an electric car, which like is very cool because like another one of the reasons I didn't get a full electric car at the time is that I asked an electrician about getting a level 2 charger in my house, and they were basically like, it'll be $1 bajillion. So there's good things happening here, at least for the moment.
If there's any naysayers, and this is coming from someone who has a gas vehicle, but if there's any naysayers on electric cars are bad and gas should be good because now you're not reliant on the grid. Well, let me tell you something. You're reliant on the pumps. You don't have the capabilities in your backyard to refine fuel. So you're reliant on the existing infrastructure, independent of how your car is running. You just need the infrastructure.
I really do think, not to get into like bigger picture, but infrastructure, for those of you listeners not in the United States, man, infrastructure here is bad. And like electric vehicle charging stations, not nearly prevalent enough. But even like I'm a high speed rail truther. I think there should be them.
Likewise.
And I don't understand why there's not. It's just infrastructure.
It's never going to happen.
Plus, you can make electricity in your backyard. An alternator.
Solar panels, man. Solar panels.
Like this takes you off the grid, folks.
High speed rail is never going to happen.
Don't crush my dreams, man. Don't crush them.
Well, it's the layout of the country and the major cities within the country, and it's also lobbying. I'm sure there's many, many companies lobbying for high-speed rail to not happen here, which, like, sucks, but it's just the truth of it.
Even start with, like, corridors, like the Eastern Corridor, your Western Corridor, the middle of the country, I don't know what to tell you, but, like, let me go up the coast.
Yeah, I mean, again, I don't think it's ever going to happen.
Crushing my dreams.
the new faster charging tech from BYD is going to be available in 2 new vehicles, which will start around $37,330. I think the big thing that has to be figured out with electric vehicles right now, outside of this, is probably what to do with the batteries, because I think that's still a really big problem. Battery waste is like, I think they still like haven't figured out a good way to mitigate that, so we're gonna have to figure that out. But steps being taken in the right direction. So shout out BYD, negative shout out Tesla. We'll see what more is on the horizon for electric vehicles. We're going to take a short break now before coming back to talk about romantic comedies and one of the bigger romantic comedies coming down the pipe. Before we do that, though, I would be remiss if I did not. I would be Remus. It's like me saying the name, like Remus Lupin from Harry Potter. I would be remiss if I did not shout out our fantastic Patreon producers, Mr. Stephen Keller, Mr. Lloyd Weldy. Both been supporting us for a minute here now, and we are super, super appreciative of their support. They get this shout out every episode, and they are producers on this show as a result of their subscribership on our Patreon at the highest of our 3 levels. That is the night level subscribership. There is also a Squire and a page level. The night level gets you access to the monthly secret segment and vlog, as well as this producer shout out, the occasional guest spot on the show. The Squire level gets you access to the monthly secret segment and vlog, and the page level gets you access to the monthly secret segment. So you can head over to patreon.com/online Warriors podcast. Get all the details on those levels of support. Consider saying hi to us, saying hi to Steven and Lloyd, and getting back to the show, helping us keep this thing going. I should also at this time shout out our Blue Sky handles. We are no longer on Twitter/X. We are on Blue Sky. I am at OW Illeagle86.bsky.social. We have at OW Nerdbomber.bsky.social, at Techtic.bsky.social, and our main show account at onlinewarriors.bsky.social. So head over there. Let's talk about electric charging technology. Let's talk about Happy Gilmore 2. Let's talk about Materialists. Let's talk about how great this show is. Or I guess how not great it is. That would be an interesting conversation. So again, head over to Blue Sky if you want to chat with us. Thanks again to Steven, and thanks again to Lloyd. We'll be right back to talk about Materialists.
Online Warrior podcast listeners, I want to take a few seconds of your time just to promote Xbox Tavern's podcast. It's an Xbox-centric podcast with news, reviews, as well as the 5 of us talking about all things Xbox. We're from the UK, would love to get in your ears. Search Xbox Tavern on your best podcast app. And you can also head over to xboxtavern.com where we've got our latest reviews as well as some opinion pieces. Go check it out. Now, back to the show.
All right, we are back to talk about romantic comedies. Like I said, we've talked about, we talked about this a lot on this show.
I'm so excited that there might be, and so I was on TikTok, right? As one does when you're pooping, you go down TikTok rabbit holes, and something came up that was like, when this trailer showed up on my feed, it was like, guys, recession rom-coms are back. And I think we're on to something here.
What makes this a recession rom-com? What does that term mean?
When high-profile actors deign to be in rom-coms.
Why recession? Recession's a negative term.
People need something to make them happy in troubling times. So they don't want to be thinking about negative things or socio-political things or historical things. Okay. You just want a happy rom-com. And if that's what it takes to get me rom-coms, I don't know what to tell you, man. I'm kind of here for it.
So I want to keep drilling into that. So is recession rom-coms like a known name for
I have no idea. There were a lot of likes on TikTok on that TikTok video that said that. I don't even remember what creator made that and coined that term, but it resounded in the comments.
Well, shout out to that creator. I mean, rom-coms are in large part a fairly lost art. I mean, I've watched recent rom-coms, like fairly recent. Like one of the rom-coms that like made the biggest splash recently was the Sydney Sweeney, Anyone But You. But that felt like it was really, really riding hard on Sydney Sweeney's star power at the time and Glenn Powell's star power.
That's what I thought until I watched it.
It was better than I expected.
It's a fine movie. It's a fine movie. Yeah, like I've seen it. It's written. It passes the smell test as like a decently written rom-com. There was another rom-com I started watching fairly recently that I had to turn off, and I can't remember the name of it now. But there have been a few in recent times that have had middling quality, middling to good quality. We haven't had our socks knocked off. Like there was, back when like Nora Ephron was like at the height of her power, and like Sleepless in Seattle, and like, When Harry Met Sally, and even getting into the 2000s movies like Hitch, which I love. Like there was a time for rom-coms and there was a time for not rom-coms, and we are still in the time for not rom-coms, it would seem.
But maybe they're coming back.
Yeah, enter Celine Song, who we'll talk about her in a minute, because I
wrote Past
have
Lives,
some.
right?
Yeah, so we're going to talk about it now. She wrote Past Lives. Did you guys watch Past Lives?
No, it's been on streaming though, and I heard a lot of good things about it.
I did not like it. And like this was a movie, so yeah, and I feel like I had to have talked about it on the show. This is a movie that I believe was nominated for an Oscar. Or like she might have won the directing Oscar for it. This was a couple of years ago, this would have been. This movie comes with very high praise. It's about childhood friends who he comes back to visit her in New York City. And he's in love with her. They kind of have like I don't want to say on again, off again, because it implies that they were ever on and they really weren't. But they have an interesting relationship that they have brushes with romance essentially. And it culminates in this weekend trip where he visits her in New York City. Pretty good setup. I didn't love the way that it was executed, I guess. So I have pause with respect to her being the person behind this. That's like, and I hate to throw a wet blanket on you, Nerdbomber, but that's like, I think everything else about this, in particular Pedro Pascal, who, goodness gracious, I melt when he looks at me. Am I the only one?
Honestly, I could take it or leave it on Pedro in this one.
But rom-com Chris Evans?
Rom-com Chris Evans, thank you.
We haven't seen rom-com Chris Evans in quite a while.
Love me a rom-com Chris Evans.
So was Ghosted a rom-com?
I think that was more of an action movie, but it did have rom-com elements. So I'll give him that. That was like he dipped his toe back in. He was like, let's see if I can feel out rom-com, but I have to throw some action in. I know he wasn't the action star, but...
Did you see, I believe it's called Before We Go? Have you seen this movie?
Yes.
He plays the trumpet.
Yes.
And the movie is he plays the trumpet and he meets a girl in Grand Central Station while he's playing the trumpet. And they just kind of like have a little thing.
But that
I
was,
should say,
that, I don't know if that was a com. I think that was almost like a rom-drom.
It has a 28% on Rotten Tomatoes, so people didn't love it. I thought it was fun. It was fun. It was fine. It's on there as a comedy / drama / romance. So the romance actually comes last, but I don't know if that's just alphabetical or not.
See, when I think of like rom-com Chris Evans, though, I'm like tossing it back almost a decade, if not more, but like Playing It Cool and What's Your Number, and was he even in like the Nanny Diaries, like the peak rom-com time? He was one of the leading men.
Playing It Cool, 2014. Him and Michelle Monaghan, pretty good pairing there. I think I watched Playing It Cool, but I don't remember anything about it.
It also had the guy from That 70s Show, the main guy, Topher Grace.
Topher Grace.
Oh, I'm just looking up. That had a 15% on Rotten Tomatoes. Woof.
Yeah.
Listen, the public doesn't need to love rom-com Chris Evans. We do.
Chris, it's good to have you back in the rom-com seat. You're a very brave man for coming back. He looks great. My wife watched this trailer with me, and she's always keeping track. She's a big Chris Evans fan, and he's made some movies in recent times. It seemed like in between his Marvel movies, he would like do some crazy stuff with his hair,
the long
and, like,
hair,
his beard, and he would be in a movie and look bad. And she's like, he finally looks good again.
Your wife great. likes scruffy looking men. You know what I mean?
I think so. Yeah.
I mean, yeah. Case in point, right? I mean,
yeah, I look kind of like that. Dakota Johnson.
I'm so torn.
I don't know.
Her. Sometimes I feel like she can at least be passable.
I like her.
And other times
she gets weird roles, but I like
her.
her.
Yeah, maybe it's just the roles that she's taking and the movies that she's in are just not great. But I don't know.
I feel like her PR is kind of weird too. Like she had that whole fight with Ellen. Like she's just a very strange. So she had the limes in her house. Like she's just a very strange person.
She should avoid talk shows, just in general. Every interview, I feel like she like tries to be funny, and everyone is just kind of like, what?
I don't know.
I think what.
I kind of like it though. It's kind of like that. It's this weird deadpan where I don't know if she's trying to be funny, which makes it funny.
But like that's Aubrey Plaza.
Right, but I don't think she's trying to be deadpan. Like I don't think that's
Have you seen the thing where she's doing a house tour and there's limes in her house that they like just they staged a bowl of limes there and she just picks up a lime and she's like, I love limes.
I thought that was funny.
in particular, I'm not saying no to her in this
I'm
movie.
saying
I just like
emphatically yes.
I'm confused by her, and I think there are a few leading ladies that I would have rather had. But
No, I'm all
not
in.
saying
Her
I'm
and
not,
Pedro,
not
I can
closing the
already
door.
feel the chemistry.
As far as the story goes, he's a rich guy who, and by he I mean Pedro. Pedro's a rich guy who loves being rich. She's a gal who probably likes being rich also. But Chris Evans is I guess an old flame. Do we know? Like, is it confirmed in this trailer? Like, they seem to have some kind of history. He's like a caterer or something. I don't know what his job is.
It seems like it's an old flame situation.
Yeah, and he's like a caterer, and so like he's catering a wedding that she goes to, and she meets Pedro at the wedding, and Pedro's hot, and he's also super rich, and so Chris Evans is pining. Yeah, every rom-com you got to have a guy pining, otherwise, what are you even doing? So the board is set, the pieces are on it. I'm interested.
Okay, I'm gonna give you guys I was going down the Dakota Johnson discography, her movies, her IMDb, and I'm gonna give you one role, one movie, which you might be like, okay, Peanut Butter Falcon. That was a genuinely good movie.
Literally, don't even remember that she was in that. I agree, it's a great movie.
She was the main girl.
Well, I mean, was there a main girl that that movie is basically Shia LaBeouf and the guy who he's acting against, whose name I unfortunately don't remember, having a journey together. Like, what is her involvement in that movie? I don't even remember.
I think she joined them on the journey halfway through.
Yeah, I wish I remembered that. I mean, that is a great movie. She's been in good movies, like especially from a commercial perspective. Like 50 Shades of Grey was like a huge deal, and like she was a huge part of that. So like,
no, I have never seen those movies.
I think I watched like a couple scenes once, and it made me deeply uncomfortable. And I just was like, I'm not. And it wasn't, to be clear, not the sex scenes. The scenes outside the sex scenes are the uncomfortable scenes. It's like he creeps on her. It's weird.
Yeah.
So, anyways, shout out to 50 Shades of Grey. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. She was recently in Madam Web, which was like a whole meme factory, but she's done a bunch of other stuff. Like she could be good in this. This is a movie that. Look, I love a rom-com. I will see this on streaming, probably. I'll watch it on streaming. I'll definitely watch it on streaming. But I don't know that I'm going to go pay $13 to sit and watch this. Nerdbomber, your take?
Yeah, I'll see this for sure. I think this is another, we were talking about, I don't even remember what movie last week, but being a good drive-in theater movie, and this would be another good drive-in theater movie. Yeah,
what were we talking about last week that would be a good drive-in movie? Because I remember you saying that. I remember it being true, but I can't remember what movie it was. We'll have to go back and check the tape. I agree. This would probably be a pretty good drive-in movie. Pretty low stakes. I predict that neither one of them will get the girl. That is my official prediction for this movie. She's going to walk away.
And she's going to be too much going on. You know what? I'm just going to find myself. Me. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the two dudes will fall in love. Can you imagine?
I'd watch the hell out of that.
I would watch the hell out of that.
That'd be awesome. So this comes out June 13th. So be on the lookout for Materialists. That brings us to What Are You Up To Wednesday. This is the part of the show where we talk about what we've been up to. Last week, I definitely deferred, I believe, until last because I didn't have anything new to talk about. This week, I'm going to go first and say that once again, I don't have anything new to talk about. Like, I'm working through God of War Ragnarok, which is going great, but it's a long game, so I'm going to be working through it for a while. I continue to progress through Murderbot Diaries, having a fantastic time. I'm in the middle of book 3. I do intend to see that through, but here. I guess let me get your opinion on this because you guys have both read some number of the books. Would taking a break after book 3 be appropriate? I'm having a great time, but I feel like it may be appropriate to take a beat and get a palate cleanser in, like some murder mystery or something, before going back to it. Does that seem like something that would be an appropriate maneuver based on your memory of the series?
So I'm a psychopath, and like right now, I'm entrenched in like the middle of a 7-book series, and I will binge it. And I have binge series in the past. I struggle with taking a break.
Yeah, it ends that run ends at book 4. Why wouldn't you just finish it?
It does. Well, I don't know. Maybe I should just go to book 4. And they are very short books. Here's another philosophical question about these books. Look, and I'm trying not to be super type A about this, but like last year, for the first time ever, I was like, I'm going to see how many books I read in a year. And I read 18. That doesn't count a bunch of books that I read over the holidays because, first of all, they're very light little books and I read them every year. But this year, I'm trying to get above 20. Do these, like, how do you count these?
These kind of books?
These are each a book, yeah.
I think you're wrong.
I don't know how you're tracking them, but I use Goodreads and That's how I track my books. It's a book. And
I
it'll
feel like
tell
it
me
shouldn't
my
count.
average page.
It's so short.
I don't know, because then I feel like it balances out. Like last year, I don't remember what I read, but I read a very short book, but then I also read like a 700-page novel. So then my average page count per book was still like in the middle. So I think it averages out. I think it's fine.
I should track pages. That would be smart to do.
It does it for you if you go on Goodreads.
Yeah, I have a Goodreads, but man, I haven't used that since like 2017.
Unless we're probably not friends on Goodreads.
It's interesting just from, I really enjoy the statistics at the end of the year. I'm a big fan of that. Actually, there's another app now, a rival one, Storygraph, that has a little bit more, like it gets into the nitty gritty, like what time of the year you like to read this genre of book, and it tracks that kind of stuff. But like that's a little bit, I don't think I need that much. But
and they're probably farming the crap out of my data. Which,
you know what though?
That's okay.
I'm okay with Goodreads. This is going to sound horrible. Goodreads is owned by Amazon, and so I know Amazon has all my data anyway. So like, okay.
I've heard this. Well, I've also heard this as a reason to not use Goodreads.
I feel that, but I just know like Amazon already has all my stuff. Like, I don't know.
Oh, certainly true. And that's another thing we didn't talk about this week from news topics. But like, did you hear that like Echo Dot? Like, it's just you can't even. They send your data to the cloud now, no matter what. You can't opt out of it. Like as of like this week. Shout out to Jeff Bezos. So yeah, I am still going through Murderbot. I'm still playing God of War, and I'm still watching. Like we're approaching the end of like. I'm still watching like 3 shows. I did just finish Severance. Did you guys finish Severance? We can't talk about it on the air because it's like this finale was a huge deal. But
no, we're still pending. We might watch it tonight or tomorrow, depending on time. We just didn't get around to it this weekend.
Obviously, no spoilers. What I will tell you, and anyone else who's out there, and who, because like I've talked to a lot of people who have been frustrated by season 2, and I understand that in terms of like not answering many questions, asking more, very slow burn. The finale delivers. It really, in I think a number of ways, it delivers. It doesn't answer everything, but it does a lot. So be on the lookout for that. Watching White Lotus. I also went back and watched all of season 1 of White Lotus, which really good. Really just a fun time. And watching The Pit, and I think that's it actually for now. But yeah, so not a whole lot of new updates, unfortunately. I'm a boring person. I apologize for that. Luckily, Nerdbomber's a lot more interesting. So Nerdbomber, go ahead.
All right, so we started watching Running Point. I know we just said we didn't have a lot of time to watch stuff, but Running Point, the difference here is it's a 30-minute comedy. And this is a new one on Netflix starring Kate Hudson and a bunch of other actors. And
this is where she buys the basketball team or something?
Well, so she's basically like the 90s Lindsay Lohan or 2000s Lindsay Lohan of this family that owns a basketball team. And essentially she, had her rough period, dark ages, but then now she's grown up and circumstances happened and she has now taken control of the basketball team. And I really enjoy this show so far because they're doing a really good job not making her a ditz. Like they could have leaned into it and been like, oh, we're going to put this girl in charge of a basketball team and she knows nothing about basketball. But they actually went the other way with it, where of her family, she is the one that pays attention to and knows the most about basketball and the league. So she just never really got taken seriously. So now she's in this position of power where everybody is underestimating her, but she's rising to the occasion because she's actually really good at the job. So it's a really decent watch so far. I don't know. I feel like there's a bunch of funny one-liners that I go heh at, like any Mindy Kaling show. And it's just like that very like kind of fast-paced comedy that you've come to expect from The Office, Mindy Kaling, like that genre of comedians. So I'm enjoying it. I'm having a good time with it. And then outside of that, I have been reading the Throne of Glass series, which a friend of mine has been telling me to read probably for like a decade. And I got the box set for the holidays, and I am now, I think, the 3rd book into the 7. There might be 7 books. I don't know. There's like 7 or 8 books, and I'm the 3rd book in. It's pretty good. I'm enjoying my time with it. It is definitely not like, there's obviously romance elements when you're talking about the romantasy genre, but I feel like it's leaning more into, the non-romance of it all, which is interesting because it's not what I expected from it, which is fine by me. But the plotline's really interesting. The main character is an assassin. I don't really want to give too much away because there's a lot that has happened in the first 3 books that I've read. But more or less, an assassin is entered into a competition after she's been imprisoned and caught to become the king's champion sort of deal, and has to go through all these trials to become the king's champion to win her freedom back. And I don't know, it's interesting. I love fantasy books, so this is my I know it's technically spring, but winter fantasy reads. So I'm having a good time with it.
Fantasy is a gap genre for me. Last year I read Murtog. Chris Paolini came back and started that series up again. I've dabbled in Game of Thrones, but that's kind of hard for me to get back into. And I guess I'll farm this out to the listeners. Any good fantasy series I can start, hit me up, because I have an interest in dabbling in that genre a little bit in the way that I dabble in mystery and sci-fi and nonfiction. I want to throw that in there, but I'm intimidated by the depth of options that are available.
There's a lot of good stuff. It depends on what sort of fantasy, because I feel like the fantasy genre is so wide in and of itself. Do you want magic? Do you want dragons?
Yeah,
do you want
exactly.
just medieval times? Do you want assassins? So depending on, what you like with fantasy, I can sort of guide your hand. There's also your lighter romantasy. There's also your very dark, super world building political fantasy. I've read a shit ton of fantasy. So depending on what niche you want to get into, I can try to guide your hand.
Yeah, it's tough too, because the other thing is I don't know that I'm ready to make a huge commitment. I'm currently reading, not currently reading one of the books, but I'm in the middle of the Expanse series in sci-fi, and that's I think 7 books, and that feels like a big commitment. And then in fantasy you have isn't the Wheel of Time 30 books or something? There are a lot of series that are massive, and I'm just I don't want to, that's scary to me. I don't want to do that. So it's tough in that way too.
I can rattle off quick recos if you want assassin stuff. A 3-book trilogy is the Night Angel trilogy. I'm literally looking at it on my bookshelf right now. That was really good by Brent Weeks. I've heard really good things about the Mistborn trilogy. I also have that on my bookshelf, but haven't read it.
Heard of that one.
And there's a third one that I was going to say, but I can't remember it off the top of my head. But if I remember, I will tell you.
Sweet. Hit me up on Blue Sky. Anyone who's got any good recommendations. Very good. Is it Techtic time? Is it tech time?
Hi. So I have 2 things that I want to talk about. The first thing is that it was my turn to host the D&D brunch that I've been doing. And we didn't play D&D, we just did brunch and board games, and it was fantastic. I had a breakfast pizza, half bacon, half turkey sausage, and we brought mimosas, and shout out to Illeagle, because I was serving the Mr. Black espresso martini. I didn't have espresso, I just did regular coffee. And
that's all you need to do.
I will state, when you're doing the ratios that are on the bottle, if you're using regular coffee, do 3 ounces of the regular coffee and then keep everything else the same.
Yeah, I'm trying to. I feel like I don't measure the coffee as strictly as everything else. So that's a good tip. What board games did you play? If you remember any, you could name.
We played Tetris, and we played. We just pivoted to Jackbox. I was going to switch to hardback, but it felt like it was too big of a bar to entry for the amount of people just learning it for the first time. So next time I have other games, we might do either from a video game perspective, Mario Party, or there is a really fun, it's kind of like a...
It's called Long Shot.
Derby racing. Yeah, it's called Long Shot. It's like a derby racing game. That one I completely forgot about that I meant to bring out.
I have played Long Shot. Long Shot's really fun.
Yeah, it's great.
I dropped the ball. And then the other thing is I was planning on dedicating my Sunday to making an e-ink typewriter with the Raspberry Pi Zero. And I just had one problem after another. My Raspberry Pi Zero has been kicking around, and for whatever reason, the power supply just got fried on it. Not the power supply, the plug itself, but internally the board just, I guess, overheated and fried. Not sure why, but I guess that gave me an excuse to buy the Raspberry Pi Zero 2. And so that was a fail. The e-ink screen that came was missing components, so I have to get the right one in with the right components. And so that was just kind of a depressing adventure, but hopefully next time we talk, I'll have an exciting adventure because I'll have assembled it and I'll have it functional, and then it'll just be print the case and have a little typewriter.
And you forgot I left Split Fiction for you as well.
Oh yeah, we beat Split Fiction, guys. It was absolutely fantastic. 10 out of 10 recommend. Still on track to be game of the year.
Right on. Yeah, Split Fiction, hoping to play at some point. And yeah, I'm gonna be checking in for updates on this typewriter project of yours. I have a vested interest in maybe doing something similar myself at some point. So keep me posted. That brings us to the end of the episode. Hopefully you enjoyed listening. You can head over to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Leave us a review. Let us know what you liked, what you didn't like. You can hit us up on Blue Sky at the handles mentioned previously in the episode to talk Materialists or Happy Gilmore 2 or fast electric charging or whatever the heck you want. And, get out there, spread the good word. The Online Warriors podcast is doling out the feel goods every Wednesday. So yeah, tell your friends, stay safe, have a great week, and keep on podcasting.